Gwan, how you there? What's good? And you know who this is, baby. The number one podcast in America, dedicated to all you kings and queens of color, homies and homettes, shotters, woo gals, G-boys, and charges. The one and only JerkJollofandCollard Greens podcast.
Wagwan, how you day? And what's really good, everybody? Welcome back to the world's most cultured podcast, the JerkJollofandCollard Greens Show. In today's episode, the JJC team will be speaking on the importance of self-love and finding the perfection in our imperfections. Let's keep it a stack. The world is crazy and things are getting more and more confusing every day with people telling us who to be and how to live. Well, on this episode, we'd like to challenge you to love those things about yourself that make you, you. And this is no judgment zone. Well, that's only if you are already a follower. If you aren't already a follower or perhaps tuning in for the first time and would like to learn more about the show, then definitely check us out on Instagram and Facebook, JerkJollofandCollard Pod. Additional ways to reach us provided in the outro at the end. So we'll get right into our question. Oh, my bad. I even introduced who's on the pod today. My bad, Salas.
It happens.
I was so excited to get right into this question.
I hear you. Yeah, man. We're here. Happy belated Father's Day. I don't think I said that on the last recording, but it's a long time from now. It's a week past, but happy belated anyway. So all the fathers and father
happy
figures.
Belated Father's Day to all y'all fathers out there holding it down.
Yeah, we're gonna get into these about imperfections and all that. So
yeah, y'all trying to be the perfect father. Hopefully, we might help y'all out. So, all right. So our question today is: what is your most used emoji this year and why?
So far this year, it has been the hand palm emoji. Basically, and all I'm not sure, like I'm able to use emojis at my job, like we're in chats and stuff.
Yeah.
I melanate all my emojis. I make sure people know that I'm black. Because
this man is literally making sure only the black characters,
only the black ones. If we're on Zoom, there's a chat, I'm dropping all these black thumbs up, hand raise, all that. I'm that guy. But apart from that, my most used one is the face palm. This has been a face palm type year. Between the gas prices, inflation, real estate, Bitcoin's like $18,000 right now. It's a lot of face palm.
Shortages, item
shortages, exactly. But jobs are up, and that's good. But I'm just a little concerned what's going to happen in the next presidential election, honestly. And like the unwise opinion is just that the left is behind everything. And I'm like, no, inflation is global. Supply chain issues are global. Jobs are up. There's not going to be a recession. Chill. But, just trying to make sense of everything today is a true face palm, in my opinion.
And it's so funny because it's so funny because I actually never really used emojis like that. But mine has been, it's the winky face with the kiss. And it's funny because like I know I use it a lot because I feel like and I use it in our guys chat, which is kind of funny because like I feel like guys, we just don't show affection, and I always kind of like let my brothers know I love them and wish them the best, and it's funny because you guys think that it's sarcastic when I do it.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I do it, they're like, "Oh, he's just trying to." Because I usually will ask
this guy.
I'd be like, "Hey, did you guys work on this thing for the agenda?" They go like, "Yeah, we'll get it to you eventually." And then I'm like, "Okay, thanks." Winky face kiss. So you guys be thinking that like, "Oh, this guy's probably just trying to be an ass,
being a jerk." Nah, that's an awesome thing. I agree with the displays of affection. I may not choose the kisses and the winky faces, but yeah, each its own. Whatever.
Yeah, each his own. Yeah. So let us know what emojis y'all using. Throw some emojis in the chat so we can know what y'all using out there.
Or in the comments. What's your favorite emoji?
Well, as we talk about self-love and appreciating yourself, there's no way to do it better than with today's Rep Yours business, Peacock Botanicals. Peacock Botanicals is gourmet art, soap sizzled with the harmonious interplay of body mint energizing ingredients. They're handcrafted, saponified olive, palm, coconut, shea, and essential oils to offer you a buffet of bathing experiences from tranquil to invigorating with opulent colors borrowed from nature's kitchen. See, feel, imbibe pure cleansing as you recover naturally radiant skin. Inhale as mental clarity is enhanced with their essential aromas. Feel the balance of their organic blends as your spirit remembers rejuvenation. You can find all this and more at peacockbotanicals.com. That's right, peacockbotanicals.com. And without further ado, let's chop. All right, all right, all right. All right, everyone. We're going to get real deep and cerebral here. So just ride on with this. All right. So, my first question, is there a such thing as perfection?
I was like, well, me personally, to answer that, there is an idea of perfection. And I think that varies. It's kind of like a social construct, right? This idea of perfection. And I mean, we just came off of a religious episode. We'd say that God is perfect, right? He has no flaws. And we also use that to describe God as a perfect being, understanding that that's something that we could never do, but yet we strive to do, every day, be like Jesus, this embodiment of perfection. But so, yeah, there is an idea of what perfection is. There is a sense or an understanding that a lot of people will assign or kind of agree on or corroborate that, yes, this right here is perfection. And in the same way, that perfect thing could also be imperfect. You know what I mean? It may have some flaws, but being that it is what it is, can be perfect to someone. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, you even look at another human being, someone you may be courting, someone that we feel like may not be a good fit for that person, but to them, this person ticks all the boxes. This is as perfect as it can get. Yeah. So it's so strange. Perfection can have conditions and limits. But at the same time, I don't think we should base our lives or our well-being around trying to become perfect, knowing that us, who we are, is an example of perfection already. We were created with flaws. We were created with greatness. We were created with, abilities, and just use them to the best that you can. And to me, that idea is an example of perfection.
Yeah, and I think that you actually hit a really good point there, because it really falls on the eyes of the beholder, like how you define perfection, not necessarily how it's being dictated to you, but, is it something that you ultimately, even if it's something that you're questing towards, like, this is the person that I ultimately want to be, and then you frame that is your perfect self, working towards that path is still, perfection is, well, I should say the pursuit of perfection in itself, but as you've defined it, one thing that we can look at here. So Oxford Language Dictionary defines perfection, mixing up the dictionaries here, y'all, having all the required and desirable elements, qualities, or characteristics as good as it can possibly be. So even in that definition, it's almost as if perfection isn't perfect, as good as it can possibly be. Like, it can't get any better than this, but it's still up to, as good as, it's still desirable, it's still required, it's still all these other attributes that, that we as individuals can self-impose. So when we talk about these requirements, who's making these requirements of us,
I think that personally can vary depending on where you are, right? Like, so for instance, you have a job, they have an SOP that tells you everything you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it. And these are often tried and tested and true procedures for that time, right? Because I feel like as time progresses, the standard of perfection or whatever is good or those requirements also change. Because let's say, for instance, now we live in a digital gig economy to where old school methods of back then, like floppy disk, are no longer a thing. But back then, floppy disks were the ish. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah.
Beepers were the ish. You know, if you had a beeper, yo, bro, you was on top of the line. You had everything going on for you. You know what I mean? So, but now as things have progressed, technology has developed, it's gotten smarter, it's changed. And it's just like, so I essentially, the requirements I feel like are always going to change, but they are set by the institutions that govern them. So they have these standards that they want you to follow, or to the best example of what perfect could be on any given situation or scenario. You know, those are the people. You set the requirements for what's perfect for you. Institutions that you work for, they set the requirements for what's perfect for them. SAT scores as an example, right? You get this certain level on this test, that's as close to perfect as you can get, like that perfect mark, that 100%. So essentially institutions do. The people that govern them, the policies, the requirements, those are all set by institutions.
And just to even add on that, you know, obviously you're subscribing to someone else's perfection, I think, in that situation, right? Because, you know, as you mentioned, those institutions are the ones that are defining what perfection is, right? Like, who's a perfect employee? It's based on these specific criteria. So you are striving towards their perfection. But the thing is that in that strive for that perfection, you know, are you losing who you are? You know, are you becoming someone else, or are you just putting on a persona to basically fit? You know, like, prime example, you know, I'm African, but you know, some people when they pick up the phone, they think, oh, this must be a white guy, you know, because I'm blending to that, to the ideology of, you know, the person I'm talking to, you know, or when I'm, you know, oh, oh, he sounds more like a black guy. Now he sounds more like an African, you know, being able to kind of fit into those different requirements. And now but am I losing parts of myself as I do that? You know, are we losing parts of ourselves as we kind of do that?
I kind of feel like people will, based on the conditions that they're exposed to, people will allow themselves to be, I guess, amendable, or I think what people call that is kind of like culture shifting, or yeah, basically your character or culture shifting in a way to adapt to your environment. And I think if you look at it as if that has gotten you any success in what you're trying to achieve, then yeah, you can consider that perfection in a way. But at the end of the day, you know that you're doing this just to achieve a goal or an end. I don't think it really changes who you are. It further exhibits and exemplifies who you are as a person, because at the end of the day, if it's something that you didn't believe or wanted to do, and your rightful self and with your free will, you can choose not to do it. But if you allow it to be something that you are or do, I mean, let's be real. There are times where in the workplace, we put on a tone or a demeanor just to kind of get through certain situations, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, you know what, it'll just be easier if I just did it like this, as opposed to how I would probably normally do it, you know. And my thing is that if it grants you the result that you're looking for, you can essentially say that in a way that makes you perfect if you're okay with doing that. But at the same time, it could just be a part of the thing that you do just to get by, which may or may not be something that I personally subscribe to. This idea of finding ourselves and being our true self, I feel like it's constantly going to be put to the ringer. Like, we're going to be tried and tested with every scenario we go through. But if it remains the same person every time, you're able to retain who you are, then you found yourself, essentially.
And I think that's the one thing that you're kind of honing in on there, because we're always kind of afraid to truly be ourselves and be who we, you know, like, oh, like maybe I'm a little bit goofier, but I'm not going to be my natural goofy self in this situation with this audience because they won't accept me. Or my accent, I need to kind of make sure I don't use this accent because, you know, it sounds too African. Or, you know, wanting to fit in with a specific group, you know, it limits us on us being who we truly want to be, right? And if you find, and I think that's part of the pursuit of perfection, is finding an audience that you can be safe to be yourself and not necessarily have to try to conform or switch something around so that people can accept you. One quote that I had here, so Khalil Gibran, he's actually one of my personal favorite philosophers, read The Prophet and some of his other works. And if you ever watch the Boondocks, he gets referenced there quite a bit. But one of his quotes is that he said about perfection is advance and never halt, for advancing is perfection. And the reason why I actually bring up this quote, because it kind of ties into the whole conversation, is that perfection is how you define it. And as you strive towards what your ideological goal is, you are in turn moving towards perfection, So as we talk about this quest towards being the perfect self and being able to find peace and happiness and love within ourselves as we kind of strive to this better being, are those truly obtainable? Because sometimes we see in society where people kind of aim for these, like, okay, I want to have a six-pack, or usually it's a little bit more physical goals, right? I want to have my muscles this big, I want to be this weight, or I want to be this well-read, but then you move the milestone, right? Then now you add another milestone, right? So you're like on a never-ending quest to perfection. So is perfection truly obtainable?
Yeah, I would say that if it's really perfection, then it's never attainable. Because I feel like whatever that standard is just, if you're able to stop and say, I did it, that's not perfection. To me, that's just good enough. It's the same reason why, for instance, you have great ball players like Michael Jordan. I believe they were perfectionists at what they did because they understood, like Kobe and Michael Jordan, that, regardless, like they never stopped and said, you know what, I did all the practice I need to do today. I'm good. I scored how many points this game? Oh, I'm good. They knew in order to keep doing what they were doing and being that good at it, they still had to practice every day. So it's those people that felt like, oh, okay, yeah, we did it. I'm good. I ain't got to show up to the meetings. I ain't got to do this. I'm good. I'm going to go out here and ball.
Practice?
Yeah. And it sucks because everyone knew what AI was trying to say, but it just got taken out of context. Because I think he worked hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's just this idea that in order to stay at that top level and continue to make the game look easy, anyone that's been really good at what they do, they never take breaks. They never stop. They hunger for it. And I feel like you find that thing you truly hunger for and want, you make time for it. You will work hard for it. You know what I mean? Life won't be an obstacle anymore if it's something that you really want to do and be good at. So yeah, there is no achieving it. There's always that sense of always pursuing it and reaching it is perfection. I think perfectionists essentially would die if there was a pinnacle that they could reach. You know what I mean?
True. Yeah.
It would just, it's constantly evolving and elevating and growing it and growing it and growing it. But then also at the same time, not allowing that to hinder your growth. Because, for instance, I'm a victim of this as well, where I have an endeavor that I want to pursue. And it's like, I don't want to start until I put all the pieces into play. But then you realize when it comes to running a business or carrying an idea and a thought, those expire. You know what I mean? Thoughts expire, dreams expire, businesses, ideas, they expire. So honestly, the best way to really get good at anything that you're going to do, or to even allow it to come to fruition, you got to take the steps actively every day to pursue it.
That's such a good point.
You have to lay down the groundwork and the foundation. Otherwise, perfection, this idea of achieving perfection, is the thing that stops you from getting to where you want to go. Essentially, it becomes that excuse as to why you did not do something. Like, I didn't do this business because it's not the right time. You know what I mean? And I know, like, one of the things, analysis paralysis. It's like, I gotta know everything that goes into play. Like, you're not gonna know everything. Just follow everything that you need to have right now. Have a plan, have a business plan if that thing is a business, but then also know that, hey, things are gonna come up on the job that you weren't aware of. Things are gonna come into place that you have to work around. But just having that mindset of being willing to work to get around that is going to make that business succeed. thinking ahead, you know what I mean, knowing what value would bring. Those are the core things you need to constantly work on to develop. So yeah, you cannot reach perfection. Perfection is not being able to reach perfection.
Yeah, man. And I think that actually you alluded to so much there. I think it's so important that people understand that aspiration for perfection, that drive towards perfection, your self-identified perfection is in perfection itself, right? But then also not being intimidated by what your goals are, like you set your goal, you know, I always use like fitness or something like that because that's what I'm about. But if you have like some crazy fitness goal, I mean, there's steps you have to take to get there, instead of being discouraged by, I want to be at this level of salary, or I want to be at this level of profession, and then being and seeing it as this overly exaggerated, daunting task, right? You can have smaller level goals to help you reach that ultimate perfection in that area that you're pursuing. Don't let it be discouraged by, oh my gosh, it's going to take 4 or 5 years to get there. So, but as we kind of like talk about perfection, right, and talk about how we aspire for things and pursuing perfection, we all have our own kind of image on what perfection is, right? But how often, or what impact does like social media kind of play on how we view perfection?
Yeah, without a doubt. And it's like it is really no different from the times without social media. You looked at Cosmopolitan, it would tell you what the ideal, the most beautiful woman looked like, and all women would strive to emulate those things, right? You look at, an editorial, a TV ad, and it would show you, okay, this is the perfect setup, or this is the perfect grill. You need this Weber grill because it has 6 burners and it goes up to 700 degrees. This is the perfect, it's like, it's a part of advertising. It's a part of the reason why people click. These examples of perfection and what you need and what you want, they're all a part of marketing. And basically playing to that is the things that's going to drive revenue, obviously, and drive people to click. And it's a very much part of our makeup. The same reason why people follow trends. You know what I mean? Like if you're a stylish person, you know that there are trends that you should follow during certain time frame, and you follow them. So it's just like, I don't think social media has changed anything. If anything, it has allowed us to get a good understanding of what other types of perfection are to other people. Like if you're looking at even partner selection, the perfect woman in South Africa, may have like, a crazy bust and crazy voluptuousness, but an European person may look at that and be like, nah, that's not for me. She's fat. So it's like, if anything is allowed us to gain exposure to what other people may consider perfect or what other people may consider the ideal, it hasn't really hindered it. But what you subscribe to is essentially up to you. So, at the end of the day, it's played a part, but, I don't think it's really done anything more innovative than television has or sports. If you are a football person, that, hey, there's certain players that you want to be like, right? Because they represented the game at its peak and what the ideal player is. So it can be helpful or hurtful depending on how you digest it. That's why I'm a big advocate for watch what you eat on this social media fast food or this information fast food. So it's really up to you at the end of the day, what impact it has, if it's, benign or malignant. It's up to you.
Yeah, and I think for me, it does have an impact. And I think I do disagree just a little bit because like I think we use social media, and the information that we kind of take from society is what we use to kind of frame our own viewpoint on perfection, right? Like we usually use those things to kind of shape our own perfection. So if we're saying that, we're consuming all of this social media content, and this is what, your lips should look like, this is what your face should look like, this is the ideal skin tone, all of these things, like we start shaping our perfection based off of those things. If everybody in our society, because I understand, across the waters, right? If like you with your example from South Africa, looking at people from Peru and vice versa. Yes, there are different ecosystems, so social systems. So I understand that the influence may be marginal, but in our own community, right? Like looking like in New York, and you see social media influencers in New York, and then they're doing all these butt posts and doing all these kind of twerk, all this extravagant things. You start thinking that, okay, this is what I need to be in order to be perfect. I need to also have, lip injections and do all this stuff to my body. And like, I can't be happy with who I am if I'm not doing those things,
Yeah, and I think that's been around even before social, because I think one thing I realized with social is, well, a lot of people don't realize everything that you mostly get on your feeds is catered around things that you search. So if you got stuff on your feed, it's not just randomly dropped there. It's all really based off your search history, things that you previously clicked on, like all that stuff is being monitored and it's being thrown into the algorithm. So it's really like everything that you see for the most part is everything that you're most likely into. But
yeah, so what does that say about
you
Chunky as a human being, right?
What up?
yeah, so
I kind of slipped in.
for,
So like can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so hold on.
I wasn't done.
So like what I'm saying is going to be I hear what you're saying. I don't think it's going to be what we perceive as perfect, but what we perceive as attention, right? So when you look at your algorithm, it tells you what you're really into and who can you really blame but yourself for the things that you like and what you don't like. So it's kind of hard to say that, hey, this is my image of perfect, or is it my image of what I prefer or the reaction I'm going to get from other people, which is a positive reaction.
Yeah, and I feel like like I said, social media hasn't hurt or helped that in that regard. Like people watch television, they see Nicki Minaj, they see the attention that she's getting, they see Cardi B, they see Meg Thee Stallion. So what do we have now? You have women that make the choice to get BBLs and surgeries and things like that to kind of look like, the people that we are. So in reality, and if we were given the idea that men are looking for these particular traits, then it's most part natural for people or the opposite sex is trying to adjust to reflect what men or what they're trying to attract is going for at the moment. It's no different from when we groom our appearance for a job interview because we know this is a standard that they're looking for when they're looking to hire. So, I mean, it's a part of, to me, the reason why I can't blame social media, because I feel like social media is just further broadcasting what's already a part of human nature. Exactly. So at the end of the day, it's us using these programs and these tools and putting the things that we want out there. So how the person then accepts it is up to them, and what they decide to go to DR and get that cheap BBL, that's up to them. And in reality, there are some women that just have body issues. You know what I mean? There's some women that can never get their body back after they've given birth. So they may use this form of a cosmetic surgery to kind of amplify their confidence, not necessarily doing it for someone else. So, I mean, just because we see something do something at the same time doesn't always necessarily mean they're doing it for someone else's attention. You know what I mean? I think that's like also another kind of misunderstanding that we have out here as well. But I can't really blame social media for just only further amplifying things that we already do on a daily.
I think that's
so.
Do you think
it's a problem within people themselves being comfortable with who they are?
There's no problem with being comfortable with who you are.
No. No, so what I'm saying, do you think that the people that tend to go that direction of getting like plastic surgery or you said BBL, are not comfortable with who they are as individuals, where they need something to enhance themselves or to be looked at in a better light as the way they prefer it, instead of being happy with what they've been born with?
It's very possible that it could be them not being comfortable. Same reason why I wouldn't be comfortable with being fat, so I go to the gym. So it's just like, I think it's very possible that people are not comfortable with who they are. They're fed negative imagery, negative body types, or I think they're probably raised to not appreciate themselves for who they are. They're probably being told from an early age, you're too fat, not really given true positive reinforcement. maybe they're led into bad or poor nutrition and lifestyle choices. So all those things can play a part. If you told me, oh, we mean Dr. Miami can fix me up for like $1,000, and I can have this, and this in a matter of hours, then I mean, if I'm that person that doesn't really have that kind of support or foundation to really believe in myself, then yeah, a G or two is a minor expense for the type of pride and confidence I'm going to get from after this surgery. So, in the most part, I believe it is to go under the knife and take that risk. I think it is definitely for something like that. That's not really anything that's going to benefit your health, but more or less so for your ego or your wanting for acceptance. It has to be something mental. It has to be.
Yeah, and I think that pulls on a really good point because when we talk about mental health and we talk about how you perceive ourselves, it's I mean, even with social media kind of all being tied in, like we keep like even people like myself, it's so funny. I look at social media like it's its own entity, like it's this living beast that that just feeds us information, but we're the ones that pour information into it. It's basically speaking back to us the things that we pour into it. So if we're saying that this is what we idealize as like the ideal body type or the ideal a car or whatever, anything like that we pour into it, then it spits back to us and we shape our identity based off of it.
I think it's something that's long standing, right? I don't think it's something that social media created, but in essence, media itself or society itself created. So if you think about back in like the 1950s, you still had to have like the best car, the best outfit. I think that's just something that we've had, but what social media does is able to give it to you faster and replicate it 1,000 times more. Because before you can only watch like what, Channel 5, Channel 3, whatever over the air channels there were, that's all that you got. And I look at it in the sense that it's pay to play, right? So it's just like when playing video games. It's like, all right, can I grind out 2K or can I spend $50 and get to level like whatever? So is someone willing to go through a full year of working out, or if I can drop 2 or 3 Gs, that kind of just knocks that time completely out the water. So if I got the money, I'm going to spend it instead of spending the time. So I think it's more so in real life pay to play when it comes down to body types and what you want to get rather than grinding for it.
I think that's really important too, because trying to tie like what you have and what you're trying to accomplish and using those things to define yourself. It kind of ties into my next question, is wanting to change something about yourself and an admittance that you don't love yourself. I know we were talking a little bit about, people doing, getting body work done and things of that nature to ultimately maybe enhance, some feature of themselves. But does that mean that they don't love themselves?
To an extent. So if I love myself, then I'm comfortable with who I am. And if I love myself to the best extent, then I'll go out and work for the body type that I want. I will have a mental cleanse and have a healthy mental diet, right? So it's one thing to get it quick and fast, but we all know if you get it quick and fast, it's not really sustainable and it doesn't mean as much. So I think people do love themselves, but not to the extent needed to where it is sustainable. I love myself today, but it not be tomorrow or next week or next month. There's a lot of people giving criticism about me. Are they really correct? So what can I do to eliminate the criticism? So it's just one less thing I have to think or worry about. So I'm just going to take that transition and spend this money or get these fake things or do what society's telling me to do in order to be left alone. So I think it's just do people have good coping mechanisms is a better question. I may love myself, but I may not know how to cope with certain situations that I'm not used to going through, or people give me a lot of criticism that I can't change fast enough.
I would say on my end, changing something about yourself is not an admittance to not loving yourself. How you love is another construct. How you choose to show love is completely up to you. So if you show love to yourself by eating cheeseburgers every day, go ahead and have that cheeseburger. If you show love to yourself by, taking care of your body and going to the gym, go ahead, show love to yourself. You know what I mean? So wanting to change something, no, I think change can be used as a to mobilize growth. And I think my idea for perfect living is constantly growing. So constantly learning, constantly learning new things. And if that requires me to change a certain part of myself, then so be it. To me, that part did not belong there. You know what I mean? It didn't help towards my growth. You know, if I want to be able to bench several stacks, I got to change a part of how I diet. I got to change how I sleep, because I know I'm not going to reach this goal unless I assign to what's best for me to achieve this particular goal. So no, I think change is a part of life. And the idea, how you do it is one thing, and then the reason why you're doing it. I think that's the reason why we're doing something is the key thing that we need to look at.
Yeah, and I think that was a part that for me is what helps me answer that question. Because if you're striving, for something for yourself, and this is the path that you have set for yourself, this is what you want to be, and you feel like you will find satisfaction in that thing, and there's no external pressures, that you're trying to conform to, then yeah, change it. I don't feel like, you should define yourself based on other people. So if you're doing it for other people, if you're doing it for the clicks and the likes, and because now this so-and-so will say hi to me and so-and-so may look at me different, you'll never find perfection in that. Because and for me, yes, it does come off as if you don't love yourself, because you need to love yourself before other people can love you. So doesn't necessarily mean you can't be growing and striving and working towards other things. It just means that you need to be able to find that connection within yourself before you kind of look for it in others. So what I have is actually our last question, as we kind of talk about self-love and tie it all to perfection. What steps can we take to love ourselves more and push towards our own perfection? Chunky, do you want to take a stab at it first?
Yeah, sure. I would say just really evaluate yourself, right? Look at what makes you happy, what makes you upset, what motivates you, what pretty much turns you off in a sense that you can't concentrate or focus, or what really bothers you. You really write those things down. When you write those things down, you're able to really identify and analyze what's going on and how to either fix something or notice that something is a problem, or highlight something that's great that you really don't need to change. It's not that easy. You have to really sit there and take a lot of constructive criticism to find out what it is, and really evaluate situations that you're actually in or have been in, and someone gives you true feedback. To love yourself is something that's not easily attainable. It takes a lot of hard work, dedication, and it's pretty much like a job. You find one way to cope with, not being able to work out some days, or someone at work that you don't like telling you something. But then again, you have to cope with either a loss of a loved one or a very hard situation in adversity. And you may think there's something wrong with you, or you can't manage the situation, when realistically, it's all different coping mechanisms to go through. So keep reading, keep learning, and actually use social media to your advantage. Social media puts out a lot of content that helps you mentally, that helps you physically, that helps you in a lot of positive areas. Change up that algorithm. Learn more about yourself. So instead of, chicks in New York City jumping on poles and twerking, look at what books you need to be reading in the next month, right? What books would actually assist you in the problems that you're having, what methods that you can use in meditation, or what workouts you can do to pretty much help yourself live a lot longer. So to love yourself means to do a lot of extensive research about who you are and how you can calibrate certain things. You really don't need to fix a lot about yourself, but you just need to calibrate it as you get older. So as we get older, we start to change, you start to see a different perspective. So as long as you're aware of that, I think you can, 1, love yourself, 2, develop the love for yourself, and 3, help others love themselves.
Slossy?
For me, I would say the best way to get on the track of showing yourself self-love is essentially balance. Like I think about, essentially what our parents had to do, or what my parents had to do to show their love for me. It wasn't always nice things. It wasn't always giving me the things that I wanted. It was about really looking deep and finding out what you needed. So balance is the key to self-love, and it's really a balancing of nourishing yourself, basically taking the time to find out what is best for you and identifying with that and believing that, showing gratitude, just basically showing appreciation for what you have, that you have it, that you're here, even for the bad experiences in life, that you're actually here to experience them and hopefully overcome them and become a better person because of it. Expression, I feel like expression and socialization, I think, are also important for showing self-love. I don't think as human beings we were meant to live these like recluse lifestyles. I know some of us consider ourselves introverts and whatnot, but even if you got that one person or a couple people that you can talk to, socialize with them, interact with other human beings. There's just so many ways for us to actually interact now, and it's a shame that we don't utilize all of them. It's just like connect with others. I feel like, especially those that share a like mind, essentially that's the best way to kind of, I guess, fellowship with other people and build relationships, because essentially, we find ourselves and we find better version of ourselves through people that we can truly connect with and allow us, give us pretty much environments to grow and develop and fine tune ourselves. And other than that, don't feel free to spoil yourself from time to time. Treat yourself to something nice, man.
A little fancy.
Yeah, go fancy, buy something nice for yourself, build up your confidence, treat yourself to something, there's definitely nothing wrong with that. And I think it's just really a balance of, like, to kind of encompass what Chunky said, keeping it real, being pragmatic, keeping yourself accountable at times as well also, but also knowing what it is in life that you want to achieve and constantly nourishing yourself and having those interactions to help you get through life as well.
Yeah. And I mean, I really like what these gentlemen said, but the one thing that I can recommend is just to start. You got to start, if you want to, love yourself and push yourself towards perfection, you have to start. As we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, maybe the goal you may think is too big. Start small. There's steps that you can take to get to, your ultimate destination, but you have to at least start and give yourself a chance. So in closing, I want to give you that Khalil Gibran quote one more time, but this time I'll give you the full quote. Advance and never halt, for advancing is perfection. Advance and do not fear the thorns in the path, for they draw only corrupt blood. As you strive to find the perfect you, and do not let fear be the reason you do not advance, because those perceived obstacles can't stop you and society can't define you. Perfection is your own to grasp. Don't stop yourself from taking it. All right, everyone, that's our show. For more content or to learn more about the podcast, feel free to check us out at JerkJollofandCollard Pod on Instagram. Podcast episodes drop every Wednesday. Stay tuned for the outro coming right after this to learn more about additional ways to reach us and send us your feedback. Be sure to like, share, follow, and subscribe. Like what you're hearing, feel free to leave us a review on your preferred streaming platform of choice. See you all again next week. Peace.
Let me know when you start that guru hotline, bro. That last quote was straight guru.
Peace, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.
And that concludes today's episode, but that doesn't mean the conversation has to end. As a matter of fact, feel free to check us out at JJC Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter for our post-discussion question following the release of this episode. If you are a Black or minority business owner or professional that would like to be featured on the Rep Yours segment of our show, or a listener with some general feedback for the podcast panel, feel free to shoot us an email at jjcpod@gmail.com. As always, likes and comments are always appreciated. Be sure to subscribe or follow to be notified when the next episode releases. And until then, stay safe, stay blessed. Peace.